My fellow Jamaicans, friends, well-wishers, naysayers, and the world at large. While I'm currently living in China, my passion and abiding love for my country remains close to my heart. One of the main issues affecting my country today is the continuous surge of crime, separate and apart from the perception of corruption from those in political office. Our government has recently revisited the use of a state of emergency against past ruling of the Supreme Court in the case of the long detention of 5 men who were never charged. It seems the ruling of the Supreme Court fell on deaf ears, for if the government had listened clearly, they would not have revisited the use of this power, which in their case of use does not meet the criteria outlined in law. Clearly, this leads us to ask the question if this Prime Minister is listening or taking the Supreme Court very seriously. I know some of you may say, hey, drastic times call for drastic measures. And as such, the Prime Minister is well within his right to use those powers. If, however, the Supreme Court gave some very clear guidelines as to how these powers should be used, the Prime Minister should follow those, provided they are grounded in law. What makes the revisiting of these powers, or SOEs, or state of emergency if you prefer, by the Prime Minister alarming is that his government was taken to court, and the court ruled that the detention of these 5 men were in contravention of their constitutional right. This violates a fundamental right, the security of the person and protection from arbitrary arrest. I choose to speak about crime as my first point because our Prime Minister campaigned on that in 2016, if not 2015 as well. When he said, if you want to go to your bed, wake up and still be alive, put the Jamaica Labour Party into power. What we have seen quite to the contrary is that the Prime Minister's main method or approach to solving crime is the use of measures that suspend the rights of persons. I am very concerned, and you should be very concerned too. We want to live in a country where everyone is treated fairly, even if they are poor. The poor are always the ones who are affected by these type of issues. Mr. Ruel and his cronies were charged for fraud in October of 2019 for the fraud in the Ministry of Education. The case was preliminarily adjudicated and has been pushed to March of 2022. This has left some question in some person's mind as to the longevity of the process and if the average man would have been treated the same way. We are well aware that an allegation is not a fact, and that everyone is allowed the presumption of innocence until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But we are very, very concerned with the pattern that our government seems to act, or where our government seems to act when he's under pressure, but not doing what seems to be right from the very onset. The government has rejected the offer by the Jamaica College School Board to extend Mr. Rui's leave, which quite frankly, I'm very happy to learn of. But it would have been noteworthy if the government had stepped in earlier. Yes, and we understand very much about the separation of powers, but there are just too many things that are not very clear in this situation. There are suspicions and they are conflicting. The People's National Party, Julian Robinson, some time ago indicated that he endorsed preferential treatment for the vaccinated. I was disappointed in that type of utterance coming from the opposition, which should be there as a voice for the voiceless. I wish to put it out there that I am vaccinated, but I do not support that kind of approach in a free, open, transparent, and democratic society, that any government should force people to be vaccinated. Be careful now. While Mr. Robinson did not articulate that he supports forced vaccination, articulating that he endorsed preferential treatment in Parliament in and of itself is discriminatory, and I believe that Mr. Robinson should not have said that. As a member of the opposition who is to be there to protect the people from oppression. We are living in a society where we already see where the government is already showing signs of not respecting people's rights. and the PMP has not adequately been standing up for the people as a watchdog. In fact, they had been in hand with the government a little too much. The perception out there is that the PMP has failed the country in standing up to the government. In fact, the UIC has been seen doing the job of the PMP. Today, I am asking all Jamaicans to demand and petition the government to act in their interests. For too long, we have had situations where the government has been acting in the interests of their friends and cronies. Recently, an entertainer by the name of Jador tried to organize a gathering where he gave some amount of notice. In my estimation, it did not meet the support needed to make it effective. It was very peaceful and most persons did not support it. How are we going to get change if we are not willing to stand up for ourselves? Why do we sit by and expect people to make a difference for us when we are not willing to make a difference for ourselves? We need to look at ourselves, Jamaica. We need to look at ourselves. Some of you may say, why don't I stick to music and leave the politics alone? Well, you know what? When I think about it, politics is anything that is associated with the governance of a country. And it seems to me that it is concerned with people making decisions that affect my life, whether or not I like it. So it is very important that I pay attention to these political actions. If I have a platform within which I can make a difference, I believe I should do that as a noble citizen. What do you think? In closing, I recommend that in future elections, although this is something that we may not be able to have control over, be very careful about giving political parties landslide victories. Because for the most part, it takes a 2/3 majority to pass most laws. And when you give any party a landslide, right there and then you are giving them the majority where they may not need the opposition to pass certain laws. I encourage you to think about that. Take care. Next time, walk good. Peace and love.
When will they realize without justice there will be no peace? We gotta get it right. Fight the fight inside. Fight the fight inside. Doing it for the good of all. Beside this we sure all will fall. No justice.